guys, welcome back to my Practically Imperfect Life. If you're joining for the first time, welcome to my channel. My name's Abby. I'm a homeschooling mom of two. I have a junior and I have a sophomore. And this video is a part of the Homeschool Show and Tell series, which is hosted by Abby from Rooted in Rest and Jessica from the Waldock Way. And basically they give us a topic each month and they invite people to create videos related to that topic and share them on this playlist. That way you can get different ideas and perspectives from different homeschooling moms. And I will link the playlist down below in the description box for you. Be sure to check it out to see everybody's videos this month. Now, the topic this month I really liked. It was what I wish I knew before homeschooling. And I thought about this for a while, and I'm sure there are going to be lots of videos on the playlist talking about what people wanted to know before they started homeschooling, period. Well, so much of what I share on my channel focuses on the latter years, the middle school and the high school years. So I thought I would take that topic and tweak it just a little bit and talk about 10 things I wish I knew before homeschooling through high school. So let's jump on in. So the first thing I wish I knew before homeschooling through high school was what colleges are looking for nowadays. When my kids were getting ready to enter the high school years, I knew I wanted to sit and do kind of a rough map out of what we wanted to do course-wise over the 4 years. And I was kind of relying on what I had done during high school. And I did a little bit of research looking at what our state requirements are for diplomas. I mean, they don't have requirements for homeschoolers, but what would someone in public school require to get a standard diploma or an academic honors diploma? And I used that kind of as my guide to figure out how many years we were going to do of different classes and how many electives and things like that. But my daughter and I recently, we did a series of college tours. And in fact, I did a whole video talking about the colleges we saw and some of the things we found out about their admission requirements nowadays. And I really wish I'd had some of that information back when I was kind of doing this map out, because there were some schools that had like a lot of requirements, 4 years of multiple different subjects, a certain number of sciences with labs, a certain number of different foreign languages, and things like speech and so on and so forth. And just having that information in advance would have been helpful for me, just kind of doing that 4-year plan. I still think we are on track to be able to meet the requirements of the school with the highest number of requirements out of the ones we have looked at so far, but it would have just given me some peace of mind when doing that mapping out. So maybe doing a little bit of research on either what your state requires, because every state is different and some do have requirements for graduation for homeschoolers, or if you have at least a couple of ideas on possible schools your student might look for if they're going to plan for college, and looking at those admission requirements and just kind of figuring that out. Not just courses, but also with regards to testing, because during COVID, there was a lot of cancellation of like the SAT, ACT requirements because you couldn't take the tests. And we've seen them not quite be required in most schools, but some are recommending it or highly recommending it. We visited a college that requires it for homeschooling students. And that's very different from when I was applying to colleges, like over 20 years ago. So having that information in advance would have been helpful for just kind of planning out our plan for courses and testing and things like that. The second thing I wish I'd known was how much having a set grading scale and a way to track and figure out those grades would give me peace of mind and make things go easier. When my kids were younger, we tweaked the grading scale kind of year to year. I mean, we had some rough ideas on what would be an A or a B and whatnot, but we weren't really tracking grades for like a report card or a transcript or anything like that. But when my oldest hit 8th grade and started to take some classes that were going to count for high school credit, and especially once both of them were in high school, I knew we needed to decide on a permanent grading scale, something that we were going to use for every course that they did that was going to count for high school credit. That way I could have something that I was putting on the transcript to really show colleges what was it that we considered an A or a B. And so I looked at the grading scales used in some of the local school systems and really just kind of adopted that. And I have not changed that since doing that. So basically every single high school level course my kids have taken has been graded on the same grading scale. And I've also shared a resource in a previous video, and I will link videos that I reference to down below for you guys. But I did a whole video on a free grading resource that was developed by 5Js. It's a downloadable Excel workbook. It is fantastic. It is like my saving grace of my sanity, because each year I can type in, there's a different like tab for the different courses. I can put in a course description, and then I can figure out how I want different things to be weighted towards the final grade for that class. So if I want tests to be worth half of the grade or 50% of the grade, I just put in 50% and label it tests. And anytime I put in a test, it will weight that towards the total grade. If I want 20% to be for lab reports and 30% for daily work, I can do that. Or if it's a course that only has a few papers and maybe some daily like narrations, I can give those different amounts of credit. It has been so nice because I can figure out how it is I'm going to grade a particular course, pop the numbers in there, it auto grades it, it transfers it over to a printable report card. It's fantastic. And it's free. And I love things that are free but work really well. So I will definitely link that video down below for you. Highly recommend checking it out if you're looking for a great way to keep track of grades and save your sanity during those high school years. The third thing I wish I'd known in advance was just how easy it is to create a high school transcript. I remember being very nervous about creating a transcript, that it wasn't going to look right, it wasn't going to look professional, it wasn't going to have all the things that it needed. And of course, as soon as you do a Google search about homeschool transcripts, you get ads for all of these different services. Send us their information, we will create it for you. And it's expensive in a lot of cases. And the more I looked at that, the more I was like, why would I pay for that if I can make it myself? I'm a real big stickler for if you can do something for free or for a low cost, I'm not paying a fortune for it. So I got onto Microsoft Word and I started playing around with different templates, and lo and behold, I was able to create a transcript that looks exactly the same as the ones that you can pay hundreds of dollars for. And in fact, I did a whole video showing you guys how you can do the same thing, how you can create a transcript nice and easy using just Microsoft Word. It's also really nice because related to another thing I'm going to talk about with sports, there are specific requirements that NCAA wants with regards to your transcript, certain things that need to be on there and the way it needs to be formatted. And so that was a really great guide for me on putting together a transcript. But if I had known it was that easy, it would have saved me a lot of stress and I would have gotten started on it much, much sooner. The fourth thing I wish I'd known were the requirements for college sports. Now I know very few students actually go to college and will play for an NCAA ranked team. I mean, it's a very small percentage of total college students, but my daughter in particular has had a goal for a very long time to play golf in college. And I started to research it early last year and found out there were so many things that homeschoolers had to do for the NCAA well before college in order to be considered eligible to play Division I or Division II sports in college. I mean, there's a whole packet that you have to fill out and all of this extra information that you have to put together. And it's something where if you waited until their senior year to do, it would be just a massive undertaking. I mean, I know it would have felt incredibly overwhelming. And I'm fortunate that I started doing this research for sophomore year and no later than that, because I could play catch up a little bit. But had I known those kind of requirements in advance, I would have started on them all the way back at the beginning of her freshman year and saved myself just a lot of hustle trying to play catch up and been able to just kind of plan out what we were going to do when a little bit better. Now, if you have a student who even has an inkling that they might want to play a college sport, I highly recommend checking out my NCAA sport video. Again, linked down below for you. And I go into detail about what it is that is required for your homeschool student to be considered eligible to play for Division I and II teams in college. There's just a lot that is covered there and a lot that is required, and the sooner you can get started on it, the better. The fifth thing I wish I'd known in advance was how much things would switch from me doing direct teaching to me just doing targeted help. And I think part of me knew that this was coming, as they were going through middle school, we were really working on those skills of them being able to watch a lecture or read a chapter and take good notes and learn from that, study independently, be able to be prepared when they're doing a quiz or a test, figuring out how to format an assignment. I mean, I wanted them to build those skills, but they learned them so well that just the shock of how little they need me to do direct teaching anymore is, I don't know, I think it just caught me off guard. I thought with the subjects being harder, they would need me more, that we would sit down and need to do daily lessons for certain subjects, and they just don't need me for that. But they do need me for targeted help. So if there's one or two concepts that have them stumped, or they're having trouble figuring out the right wording for a paragraph for an essay, if a math problem is just driving them bonkers and they cannot figure it out, that is when they need me to sit down and give them that targeted help, that targeted guidance. And so it was just a big shift in my role as the homeschooling parent from what it had been. And while, again, I kind of had expected that to happen, the actual reality of it just threw me a bit. And my kind of role within the homeschool just feels like it's changed as they have grown. Number 6 is how much more expensive things seem to get. Now, there are ways to save money and to homeschool on a budget, even through high school. And in fact, I'm working on a whole video series for you guys that will come out probably in November that talks about ways that you can homeschool on a budget during different time periods, the early years, middle school, and high school, hopefully to give you guys some good tips and advice on ways to save money when homeschooling or to keep it within your budget. But in general, the high school courses and the high school materials just cost more. I mean, think of it this way. Look at a high school science textbook versus an elementary textbook. In a lot of cases, the elementary science courses don't even have a textbook. They might be just workbooks and printables. The fact that you're getting these bigger, more in-depth books, they cost more. And you might have test packets that are needed now, and student workbooks, lab materials, good gracious, like the cost of getting like a microscope and prepared slide and a dissection kit and other lab kits, like that all adds up, and it adds up pretty quick. Add in there the fact that, like my kids needed a graphing calculator, and that's not cheap. And just all of those things, the courses all just cost more. And so I had a lot of sticker shock when my daughter hit her freshman year, when I was purchasing that curriculum, and I saw just how much the numbers were adding up, and I thought, okay, we're going to have to plan a little differently next year. I'm going to have to make sure that I'm putting aside a little bit more for these high school years, because that is just going to add up very quickly. On top of that, if you are looking at things like test prep courses, we are doing an SAT, ACT test prep course, and there are lots of different ones out there, but they are expensive. Like some of them are hundreds and hundreds of dollars. And that was an expense that I didn't realize it was going to be that high until I started doing the research on it. And just it would have been nice to be able to, again, plan ahead a little bit earlier, put back a little bit extra money, or, earmark more in the budget for those bigger expenses. So while it is still doable, I can still keep it within the budget I've now set. Our budget now for homeschooling things is higher than what it was when they were younger. So just being prepared for kind of that sticker shock of the change in pricing on courses and course materials and the other things related. Oh, and you can't forget the cost of things like dual enrollment, right? Because if your student's going to dual enroll at a college, or even if they're going to do a CLEP exam, there are fees related to all of those different things, still cheaper than taking the actual college class as a college student, but still stuff you have to budget for. Number 7 is just how much longer everything seems to take. Now, this is another one where, like, in the back of my mind, I knew high school classes were going to require more time. I mean, they're tougher courses. There's longer lectures or more material to review. It's harder concepts that they've got to sit there and make sure that they understand. But even things like the reading and the literature that we choose to do is just something that they can't do as quickly. We read a lot of classical novels. My son read like The Hobbit, and then he's getting ready to do Fellowship of the Ring this year. My daughter is in the middle of Sir Gawain and the Green Knight, and then she'll be doing books like Paradise Lost and things like that. I mean, these are novels that you can't just speed through. They take time to read and to understand. A lot of times you have to go back and reread sections more than once to make sure that you've really got it. And so they have to spend some of their like quote unquote free time doing that reading for school. Now, still compared to like what you would see in like a public school, they are doing fewer hours of the day. I mean, I know public school kids that are in class from like 7 a.m. till 3 p.m. and then they do sport practices and then they come home and they have hours of homework. Whereas, we're doing the assignments and the learning all during our actual school day. But the courses that are taking the longest, I think it just kind of surprises me. Like math always takes both my kids the longest. I mean, it's easily an hour to an hour and a half every day for math, every day. And then after that, it's like their history-based courses. But we do history courses that are, we use a program that involves like a lot of living books and documentaries and videos and hands-on activities. So while it takes longer because there's all those pieces to it, it's the course that they each like the most. So there's that. And then like the reading for literature, when it comes to like working on papers and things like that, my daughter especially, like she will sit there and like focus in, and then an hour will have gone by while she's working on it. So just being prepared that more time needs to be dedicated to those courses. I mean, gone for us are the days of being done by lunch. My son, especially since he works like a midday work shift, has to plan for school hours in the morning and then school hours in the late afternoon. And so sometimes that means he's getting done with school right when it's time to leave for like basketball practice or to have dinner and things like that. And then has to do some of his reading when he's home and having his chill time in the evening. So just being aware that yes, the high school courses are going to take longer, but that's just because the material is starting to get tougher the older that they get. The eighth thing I wish I'd known in advance was just how much we were going to need to flex our schedule, sometimes from day to day or semester to semester. I mean, there are definitely weeks where it feels like our schedule is different every single day of the week. And I'm very much a person of routine. Like for a long time, we kind of had maybe not like a set exact time we did things, but we had certain rhythms in place, certain kind of orders that we did things. And as they've gotten older and older, we've just had to be so much more flexible than we ever have been before. Both of my kids have jobs. And so part of that is flexing around the hours of the day that they're working. School is still the priority over the part-time jobs, but my son, like I said, he works like a midday shift a couple days a week. So his school hours are before and after that. And my daughter, when she was doing like earlier mornings, her school day would have to start after that. And then we have sport practices on top of that. So if you have kids that are involved in like club sports or homeschool sports leagues, or if they do like an extracurricular like cheerleading or dance or something like that, that the higher up they get in those activities or the higher level they're at, the longer the practices are. A lot of times the later in the evening those practices are, even games. Like when my kids were on like the elementary basketball teams, a lot of times our games were at like 5:30 and we were done by dinner time. And now that they're playing at like varsity levels, like sometimes our games don't start till 8 p.m., which means we're not getting done till well after 9, and then we might not get home till 10. And then that shifts the time of day we start things the next day because everybody's tired. And then there's like the travel for those things on top of it. Additionally, there is more that they want to go do, with their extra time. I mean, friendships have always been important and we've always encouraged the kids to really cultivate their friendships. But as they get older, they want to do things like go to the movies with their friends or go shopping or, hang out and do different things. And it's really nice once they get their license because then, you're no longer having to drive them to all those places. But that's just another thing that's kind of pulling at their time. And we have just had to be really flexible week to week and day to day in order to make sure that we're still getting our schoolwork done and we're making that our priority, but also allowing them to start to branch out as young adults and have those jobs and do those sports or extracurriculars and have that time with their friends. It's just been kind of wild to think about. It's also changed kind of how we've thought about doing school breaks. The kids, when they were younger, if I had said, okay, guys, today we're going to take half the day off from doing our core subjects and we're going to go do a field trip. They would have been like, yay, that's great. Yeah, no math. Hurrah. And now if I try to do something like that, they look at me and they're like, well, but I'm going to be a day behind on this. Like they want to keep going on those core subjects. Like they want to get what they see as like their work. They want to get it done, and they want to just stay on course with it, which I just find kind of interesting because I wasn't like that when I was in high school either. I used to be like, snow day, no school. They just want to keep going. They want to make sure they're getting those core things done. So that's just been another reason why we've had to be super flexible with how we do things. The ninth thing I wish I'd known was just how hard it was going to be to keep what I see as like the fun elements in our homeschool without them thinking that they are lame. I don't know any better way to say it. I'll give you an example. Like when they were younger, they would really enjoy things like, there's always like those seasonal and holiday like packets you can get and that have like, this handcraft in it or this little puzzle or this little game you could print out and coloring pages and whatnot. And when they were little, they just thought those were so much fun and they enjoyed doing them. And if I said, okay, well, we're going to do this craft project at the same time and then we're going to, bake cookies and then play this game, they would have loved that. They thought those were so cool. And as they've gotten older, especially into the high school years, I remember distinctly because last year I tried to do this. I tried to pull in something that I thought would just be like a seasonal fun thing for like Thanksgiving. And I was like, yeah, we'll do some of this stuff. And they didn't say it directly, but I could just tell by the look on their face that they were like, I think Mom thinks we're still 5. And they weren't engaged with it. They did not think it was fun. They just saw it as kind of a waste of their time. I know that sounds a little harsh, but again, they would have rather gone back and just done their usual work than have me introduce that as kind of like a fun element. So something that has just been a huge learning curve for me as the parent is how to keep kind of the fun and wonder in our homeschool, but also adapt it for older students. And I feel like I'm getting better at it. I've got some things that we're going to be doing for the holiday season that hopefully will, again, be fun, but educational, still teaching them something. I don't want to incorporate things in our homeschool that don't provide, educational value, but also that will appeal to them as teenagers. And that is it's just something that's tough. And so I do plan to share with you guys kind of our plans for the holidays here in the next couple of weeks and give you the ideas that I'm going to try to do with my kids. And then of course I'll let you know how it all goes. So, but I've got my fingers crossed. I'm really hoping that I've, learned from my previous failures and made the right adjustments to be able to still incorporate the fun and wonder, but still be cool to the teenagers. I will say, like with regard to specific subjects, we have transitioned, especially in our history subjects, to using curriculums that involve a more variety of things. You know, we don't do like the traditional textbook tests anymore for history. We do, you know, we do programs that include like living books and movies and hands-on experiments and cooking things from different countries. I mean, just a lot of different things. And those kind of things have really been engaging for them. And so that in a way pulls in the fun and the wonder, but still teaches them, you know, valuable things for those courses. But it's in terms of, you know, a lot of times what I mean by this is like introducing things seasonally, or, you know, topical studies that I think they would enjoy. That's just been a hard learning curve for me. So far in this list, I've covered mostly things that are things that you can practically take action on. You know, like here's something I wish I'd known. Here's the action that I took to address it, or what you could do in order to address it. But this last one, I will admit, is a little bit on the sentimental side. And number 10 is just how fast that transition is from kid to young adult. And it's not just physically, you know, I mean, obviously that they are growing up so quickly. My son is a giant. He towers over me, and every time I blink, he's bigger. And, you know, he's just turning into such a fine young man. And my daughter is a beautiful young woman. And I'm so proud of who they are becoming. But it's that change in personality and behavior and how they process things and think about things that I mean. You know, when the thinking goes from that of a preteen or early teenager to that of, you know, a true young adult. Great example would be in terms of how they think about their faith and their dedication to their faith and their Bible study. You know, it's no longer me sitting there and, you know, teaching them these Bible lessons. They're actually, you know, independently seeking out things that help them to learn more and surrounding themselves with people and resources that help them in growing their faith. And they've done that on their own. When we have discussions on topics, they're so grown up in their thinking. And it's like talking to another adult, and it shocks me sometimes in those conversations, just how mature they are in their thinking and their reasoning. And it's surprising, you know, it sneaks, oh gosh, I'm going to cry. It sneaks up on you. I mean, I know it's been happening gradually. I know it has. And I know we have done a lot of things to help, you know, get them there. But one day, guys, you're going to blink. And your little kindergartner is going to be ready to graduate and head out. And you're going to wonder, just how did that happen? And that is probably the thing that I wish I'd known in advance, was just how fast these last couple of years were going to go. Because I would have savored them more. I would have tried to slow down more and just really absorb those moments more. So, all right, I'm going to wipe my eyes. All right, so that's my list of 10 things I wish I had known before homeschooling through the high school years. Any videos that I might have referenced to during this video, I will link down below for you in the description box. I also have a whole list of playlists down there for you if you're looking for specific homeschooling topics that I've done videos for. Be sure to check out the playlist for this month's Homeschool Show and Tell. There are always so many great contributions from other homeschooling moms, and you get just a variety of ideas and homeschooling philosophies and different types of experiences being shared. It's really just a fantastic resource to check out from month to month. As always, guys, I hope you found this video helpful. If you did, be sure to give it a thumbs up. And if you're not already subscribed to my channel, hit that subscription button and the notification bell so you can find out when I post new homeschooling and mom life content. Thanks for joining me today, guys. Happy homeschooling.